Wild Strawberries from Bergman. I don't know if I ever placed this one in my top echelon of the man's films, but I've always felt that it was pretty great, certainly. I guess it felt too much like some canonical novel you read in high school and a capitulation to that medium over the unique capacities of the screen. Occasionally, Bergman and some of his European contemporaries weren't championing the qualities of the cinema so much as the qualities of the cinema at realizing the qualities of the acclaimed Western novels of the last 100 years. Movie about an old man reflecting upon his life. It may be as effective as the scaffold can be, but I don't know if I really love the scaffold. I don't know if it isn't slightly rote and hackneyed, even if the execution is quite beautiful and moving as a 90-minute span of your day. Bergman, as many may know, did not commence his career helming classic features. He made his debut in 1946 with a film called Crisis in English, though most would agree that it was not until 1951's Summer Interlude that he begins living up to his very exalted reputation. Later in that decade, the 1950s, you have Sawdust and Tinsel, Summer with Monica, Smiles of a Summer Night, this film, The Seventh Seal, The Magician, and Brink of Life, a superb run of features, even if I slightly prefer the set composed during the next decade, the 60s. But those weren't all the films Bergman released during the 50s. Those are just the ones I consider to be more of interest or top notch, let's say, living up to his status as a major classic film director, at least. Even at that moment in his filmography prior to Seventh Seal, I would claim that Sawdust and Tinsel, rather than say Wild Strawberries, was his finest. And I have to be unoriginal and boring in saying that I still appreciate Seventh Seal the most, I think, of his films. Well, along with Hour of the Wolf, The Virgin Spring, Through a Glass Darkly, and Cries and Whispers. And I'll never forget that dizzying rush of, wow, so this film really is that good. Yikes. Better films from 1957, other than The Seventh Seal. I don't mean any of these as a joke. 20 Million Miles to Earth, Snow Country, The Abominable Snowman, The Bridge on the River Kwai, The Curse of Frankenstein, Throne of Blood, maybe Bitter Victory, maybe Kobayashi's Black River, perhaps Dasson's He Who Must Die, Antonioni's Il Grido, perhaps Sternberg's Jet Pilot, certainly Vida's Canal, possibly my favourite feature film from that year, perhaps Fellini's Nights of Cabiria. I really, really love Sweet Smell of Success, perhaps The Cranes Are Flying, perhaps The Incredible Shrinking Man, perhaps Losi's Time Without Pity, probably Osu's Tokyo Twilight, and maybe Visconti's White Nights. I quite like that song from the mid-2000s by an Australian act called Pnow that shares a name with this film, but with lyrics that seem to have nothing to do with the film. I'd rather go and pick some of those wild strawberries. Used to see that video on Rage when I was young. Made an impression on me. Great stuff. What's our theme for the moment? We're going through the rankings of the 2026 edition of the TSPDT list, which is really almost exactly the same as last year's, and I'll be looking at the feature films I admire from this collation, which is actually most of them, and that I haven't already discussed on this channel prior. Thank you everyone, I wish you all very well, and hope you have a most fantastic of days.